looking at the endurance trial, the KRD versus VRD, this was a plenary session at ASCO today, okay? So these patients were standard risk patients, but included a translocation 414 and excluded, the high-risk patient, plasma cell leukemia, the other high-risk translocation 1420, 1416, and deletion 17p. They even excluded patients with LDH that was greater than 2 times the upper limit of normal. And it was a big study, over 500 in each arm. And so this was a 2-pronged study. One, to randomize either to VRD versus KRD, and then afterwards randomize each group to LEN maintenance for 2 years versus, until disease progression or toxicity that mandates them to stop maintenance. And so this one was just based on the induction regimen. So the median PFS was for VRD was 34.4 months and KRD was 34.6. There was no difference seen in terms of age, absence or presence of the translocation 414 or ISS stage. And the 3-year overall survival was like 84% for VRD and 86%. But they did see more cardiac, pulmonary, and renal toxicity with KRD, 16.1% versus 4.6. More neuropathy in the VRD, 53.5%. But I have to say, majority of that was like grade 1 to 2 because treatment was given as a sub-Q. And the KRD was 24.4%. So, so based on those, with the cardiac toxicity and pulmonary, I think, the conclusion from that trial was that really VRD was the first line or mainstay. But you can make in patients who have, this wasn't studied in high risk. So you can make a case for, say, the high risk patients, using, KRD or DARA VRD as an induction regimen.
Yeah, so I like that study also. I agree. I think, the conclusion for me in that is, and this was, as you said, so many patients, or more than 1,000 patients on the trial, that in the standard risk patients, because they did exclude all the high risk, in the standard risk patients, probably RVD and KRD, it's we're splitting hairs in terms of how well patients are going to do. What did you think on the toxicity of one versus the other? What was your take-home points on the toxicity?
Well, I was, with the cardiac toxicity, that was a major concern for me for the KRD. The treatment on that was, I think the dosing was 20 and then 56 milligram per meter square. So maybe if the dose was a little lower, as to compared to what it was initially approved for, the carfilzomib, the 20 and then 27 milligram per meter square, maybe you will not have seen, that much toxicity. And so that was the deal breaker for me with the cardiac and renal, toxicity, 16.1% compared to 4.8. The neuropathy, even in the clinic, most of the neuropathy now from bortezomib is grade 1 to 2, and those are manageable. About 45.4% out of the 53% were grade 1 to 2. And, so that was the deal breaker for me in using. So VRD is my go-to for induction, and then adding DARA for like the high risk patients. But I'm still open to, to KRD, using it in some cases. Yeah.
Yeah. I agree. And the neuropathy is probably the biggest thing, right? So the more patients stopped on the RVD arm because of neuropathy. So more patients stopped on that arm versus the KRD, despite that I think the overall toxicity, it was trade-off of toxicities was fairly similar, but more people stopped because of neuropathy. And at the IMW Summit in Boston, there was probably 5 or 7 different abstracts looking at how to give RVD. Mm-hmm. Do we give it twice weekly, the bortezomib? Do we give it once weekly? And at the end of the day, it actually really doesn't matter for,
Exactly.
I don't know about you, but typically we use a 4-week schedule in general, and it's REV, the standard dose, 25 milligrams, are adjusted by renal insufficiency. And then we use bortezomib on day 1, 8, and 15. So we do 3 doses of bortezomib per 4-week cycle, rather than the twice weekly 3-week cycle that's been done in all these trials. And I do think there's less neuropathy, and I think it's better tolerated.
Absolutely,
So,
absolutely. Yeah.